Hi guys, my name is Holly Baxter. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian and online physique coach, and today I have set myself quite the task for this recipe. So obviously with the release of Lane's and Peter Baker's new ebook for contest prep, we are following this up with a very comprehensive recipe book. So recipes that will accommodate people with higher macros at the beginning of their contest prep, all the way through to the very gnarly endpoints where our calories are a little bit more restricted. So the higher end calories has been really easy, a lot of fun coming up with creative, tasty recipes. But as we get down to the gnarly endpoints, it's really forced me to start to think about what foods I look for during those final few weeks. So I've gone back over all the recipes in my previous ebooks, and I wanted to also bring a little bit of homeliness into this ebook. So I went through all the recipes that I used to eat as a kid. So today's recipe is actually inspired by my nan. She's since passed, and I actually don't remember whether I really like this or not, but it's curried sausages. So I just want to taste this at home. I haven't made it in years. Actually, I don't think I've ever made it for that matter. I'm especially not macro friendly. So I'm here at Walmart. I wanted to make sure that all of the recipes that are going into this ebook are accessible for everybody nationwide. And Walmart is obviously a really large store, so if I can find something here, I should be able to accommodate most people if you're to purchase the ebook. So for curried sausages, it would traditionally be very high in fat because we'd be using a sausage cut. Sausages are usually like anywhere from 8 to 12 grams of fat per single sausage. So if I go inside today, I'm really hoping I can find something that is a little bit leaner. I know in Australia we have the choice of kangaroo sausages. They're called kanga bangers. It's pretty cool, so I know Australia is covered, but I wanted to see what we have access to here. So let's head inside and get to work on finding some ingredients that are low calorie for this curried sausages savory recipe. So the other problem I'm going to face is that I'm also celiac. So Walmart is a really great store. It has a lot of variety, but I'm not sure what their gluten-free section is like. So I need to go and find a couple of key ingredients like some chicken stock, for example. Hopefully these sausages are gluten-free as well, because sometimes they'll use fillers and flour to bind the sausages. So I think this is actually going to be quite a task, but I'm pretty confident I'll be able to find something that will work. So let's keep going. I found some sausages, but I can already tell just by looking at these that they're super fatty because they're speckled with white. So we're looking for a really rich red meat on the exterior, if we can see through the packaging, that is, or I'm going to have to read the labels. Okay, so I'm just gonna have a look at the back of these, and straight away I'm looking at 16 grams of fat, which is actually really high. So there are 4 servings in here, so in this package there's like up to 90 grams of fat in here, which is just crazy.
Select from list or key in the...
I completely forgot in a rush this morning that we didn't get any media consent, so we weren't allowed to film in the store. So I've still found everything that I needed to find, and we're going to go through all the products when we get back to the house. But yeah, I got very lucky. We have they had gluten-free stock. I got 3 different varieties of sausages for the dish, and yeah, I think we've got it. Perfect, let's go home. So we had a little bit of trouble when we got into the store. I was in a rush this morning and I forgot to organize media passes. So within about 5 minutes of filming, we had a lovely lady come over and address us and have us stop filming. So I didn't get to quite go through everything while I was in the store. So rather than do that, I'm going to go through everything that I actually came across when we got back to the house. So there were 3 different sausage varieties that kind of worked in with my macro budget when it comes to fat. So I'm pretty excited to share these with you, and I'll go through the costs of each of the products too, so that you know which is best value for money. And they had plenty of gluten-free options too. They had a full section with sweets, biscuits, savory things, which is really cool, which I wasn't expecting. So they actually did all right. So to go through with you the sausages that I found that are extra lean, My favorite to start off with, because they have the lowest amount of fat, so this would be most necessary for somebody that's really getting down to the finer ends of their contest prep, when you might only have 30 or 40 grams of fat per day left. For a single sausage here, there's 1 gram of fat. I'm super proud of these. This is really cool. They also have 6 grams of protein, so it's not a high protein content, but you can achieve your protein content other ways, obviously, but I was mainly looking for fat content. And then the carbohydrate is 2 per single sausage. This was more expensive than the other 2 varieties, so I'm just gonna hold that up so you can see it. So the second product that I found were these chicken apple sausages. So traditionally this recipe calls for a beef sausage, but again, I want to keep the macros low, so I might have to make that sacrifice every now and then. But for these, it is 3 grams of fat per sausage. There is 3 grams of carbohydrate, but a much higher protein content, so it's 15 grams of protein. So again, depending what your macros are at the end of the day when you're having dinner, this could be lunch as well. This is another really great option. So the final pack, this is actually a breakfast style sausage. I have used these before, which I completely forgot about, for breakfast. So this is a country style chicken sausage. They are 70% less fat. And the macros for these are 2.5 grams of fats per sausage. Again, much lower protein content. They're only 5 grams, and they have 1 gram of carbohydrate. So they're all very similar. But the weight of these is much less. So if you're looking for something that's voluminous, obviously the second variety that I picked would be the way to go, and they're higher in protein. With our protein to start, we're gonna need 600 grams of any of the sausages that you decide to choose. Also, this recipe is gonna be making 4 servings, so keep that in mind as well. So 600 grams of sausages, I'm gonna use these 2 today. We're gonna need some milk. We can use a regular milk if you prefer, but today I'm gonna be using coconut milk. Again, I wanna keep the calories low as possible, so I'm gonna be using this unsweetened coconut milk. So this recipe calls for half a cup or 125 mils. We also need some chicken stock or beef stock. This is the gluten-free variety that I found at Walmart, and the recipe calls for 250 mils of beef stock. So we're gonna need a full onion. Now, I've spoken about this in previous videos. If you're somebody that has a sensitive stomach or suffers from IBS, there are a group of foods that can cause you to become symptomatic and get GI distress. And unfortunately, onion and garlic are 2 of the main trigger foods for a lot of people. So if you're somebody that does have a sensitive stomach, I would actually recommend only using half of an onion, or even start a little less and then gradually increase the amount that you use in this to help your body be able to better digest the chemical that is found in these. So the recipe calls for 1 onion, but you can use half if you are somebody with IBS. I'm gonna use fresh tomatoes, but you can also use diced tomatoes. In fact, I believe my nan actually used to use the cans of diced tomatoes, but I'm gonna go with 1 per serving basically, so 5 tomatoes. So you're gonna need some curry powder, 2 level teaspoons. Don't make the mistake of using tablespoons. This is very strong, but it is what makes this dish so delicious. Now, I can't quote that because I haven't had this in a long time, but I just remember loving this as a kid, and we used to ask for it all the time. So 2 level teaspoons of curry powder. I'm also going to be adding in a little bit of garlic powder. Now again, this is another IBS trigger food, so if you're somebody that does get symptomatic quite often just from a range of different savory foods, I would strongly recommend just not worrying about the garlic powder. I have started to reintroduce garlic to my diet, which is great, and I'm starting to become less symptomatic. So I'm actually up to around, let me think, maybe half a garlic clove I can handle or not have any symptoms, which is really great. It's taken a little bit of progression to get towards that. So I can use this kind of freely in all foods now, which is awesome. So half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a little bit of extra salt, and a little bit of pepper. Again, up to personal preference. I wouldn't be fluctuating your daily sodium intakes too greatly, particularly as you come into your final weeks of preparation. Your sodium and your fluid intakes are really important. So try and keep that consistent, but adding this for flavor. You're probably wondering why I have a packet of raisins going in here. This is just what my nan's recipe had in it. I think in Australia we call these sultanas. So sultanas, raisins, wherever in the world you are. I'm gonna use 125 gram or 1 ounce serving of raisins. It just gives it a really nice sweet taste. So you'll take a bite occasionally, you'll just have this nice burst of sugary goodness. So it's not gonna add a great amount of carbohydrates, probably only 20 grams if I check the pack. 22 grams of carbohydrate, perfect. So we're gonna start by boiling some water, and we're gonna cook these beef and chicken. I'm using a combination of both today. Sausages on the hot plate, so 500 mils roughly of water, or just so that it covers the sausages, and we're gonna cook those for about 10 minutes. So I'm just going to slice, just be roughly chopped, as this is kind of like a stew-like consistency when you finish. I'm gonna start frying it. Really lean. Draining off the water. So usually I would actually slice these up into smaller pieces, but it just makes it a lot easier to track your macros if you keep them nice and whole, because we know what's in a single sausage or a single serve. Next I'm going to put in the onion, and then we'll add the carrots in a little bit later. Just gonna slice up these tomatoes. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy. So just roughly chop those. Add in the tomato and the carrot. That smells absolutely awesome. So next I'm gonna pour in 1 cup of beef stock and 1/2 a cup of coconut milk. Okay, the last ingredient that I'm putting in are the raisins. So once these are in, I'm gonna let this simmer for about 10 minutes, just over a low to moderate heat. And once that's done, it's literally ready to go. But do you know what? I think the longer you leave this to sit, especially if you eat it the next day, those flavors keep developing. But it's a very simple recipe. It takes very little time. I mean, this has taken me only 10 minutes to put together for prep time, and then 15 minutes for cooking time. So super easy, and the macros are phenomenal for this. Macros for this per serve. We have 25.5 grams of protein, really low in fat, 4.5 grams of fat per serve. And it is 18 grams of carbohydrate. Now, that is a little high if I was at the very end of my contest prep. For example, if I was around 100 grams of carbs for a day, 18 grams of carbohydrates for 1 meal, I would probably be questioning, how can I make this a little bit lower? I meant that I wanted to have more carbs throughout the day. So you could do that by taking out the sultanas straight away, or the raisins if you're here in the US. That would take away 22 grams or 5 grams of carbohydrates per serve, and you could regain some of that sweetness just by using like a sprinkling of stevia. You could also look at using just the lean sausages that had the lower carbohydrate amount. So one of these packages, I believe this per sausage had 3 grams of carbs per serve. You could use all of the sausage that actually had no carbs or 1 gram of carbohydrate. So again, it's just small things can add up if you take a few different steps to get those carbohydrates down. But I hope you enjoy this recipe. If you do make it, comment on my page, subscribe to my page. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please do. That's where I share a lot of my work. That is Holly T. Baxter. I hope that you can purchase my new ebook when it is ready, but I do have one out already. I'll put the link here on the screen for you so you can go over and get that. It's my low-calorie, macro-friendly ebook. Thank you again for supporting me. You can follow my recipe next time.